So the Vision Pro was finally here last week.
So today, I'm excited to announce an entirely new AR platform with a revolutionary new product.
And about 2 months back, I'd done a podcast on wearables. And therein I'd covered the MetaQuest Pro and the same device which was then called the Apple Reality Pro. And now when it's finally here, we are compelled to ask, is Apple actually entering the metaverse? No. The metaverse is actually a word reserved only for Meta. So Apple has decided to call it Spatial Computing. And in this episode of Deep Dive with Sangram, we're going to look at what is spatial computing all about and whether this $3,500 device is actually worth the deal or not. Now, we won't talk much about the tech specs of this device. A lot of videos have already covered that. What we're going to find out is whether this is the real deal. After all, this is a product which was meant to establish the legacy of Tim Cook. So will a Tim be able to pull off what a Steve once did? And whether this crazy as shit technology behind this product will actually deliver one of the biggest hits for Apple in recent years or not. So what is this device anyways? Is it a virtual reality device? Or is it the best virtual reality device that's ever happened on this planet? No, it's a mixed reality device, which means it's a mix of augmented and virtual reality. Now, virtual reality in short means when you're cut off from the real world and when you are in a virtual 3D imagined world, whereas augmented reality is when you augment stuff on your real world. So this device is a mix of virtual and augmented reality as it's touted. And no, it's not tethered to your phone as it was once speculated. It was speculated that all of the processing and the content would rest on your phone and this device would largely be a display device, but no, this is a standalone device. It also has its own OS, which is called the Vision OS. It's almost like a mini computer with a lot of cameras and sensors. To be precise, it has got 2 main cameras, 2 cameras facing downwards, 2 cameras on the sides, 2 infrared sensors and a LiDAR sensor in the middle for augmented reality. In addition, it has got 2 chips, a very fast M2 chip and an R1 chip. Both are meant to process real-time rendering of everything that you see inside this device. In addition, there are infrared cameras inside the lens as well as sensors that track your eyes. And this is what powers some of the most incredible features of this device. It also has a digital crown borrowed from the Apple Watch. The digital crown is meant to switch you between your virtual world and the real world. And now the biggest thing, it does not have any controllers at all. So how are we supposed to control stuff over here? Well, in classic Steve Jobs styles with your hands and fingers. And that's again one of the most remarkable features of this device. I for one will definitely buy it, but I'm an early adopter and I love to try new devices. And in this episode, we are going to deep dive whether it's really worth the buck in terms of all the features and value adds that is packed in it. But before we start singing so many praises about this device, let's firstly understand why this device or any device basically reaches mass adoption. At the end of the day, any new shiny piece of technology, when it's introduced in the market for the first time, it changes the way things are done. In other words, it forces you to change your habits to adopt to a new way of doing things. Now, when you change this, it leads to a little inconvenience because you're forced to do things differently. Now, if the benefit from this new feature is more than the inconvenience that is caused by a change in habit, then mass adoption happens easily. Now, if this new way of doing things is not offering any significant advantage or benefit over the current way of doing things, again, it's a barrier to mass adoption. In other words, how is the same need being serviced in the current scenario? So now every single feature in this device, we shall see it through these 2 filters and lenses only. So what is it meant to do? Well, the device is known for spatial computing. It would do everything that would be typically done on an iPad. Now you use an iPad to basically browse the net, look at your pictures. With the Vision Pro, you can do everything on a much larger screen. And here is where the incredible eye tracking technology of the Apple Vision Pro kicks in. Which means you will actually see all your icons spread around in the room in a virtual space. Now you want to select any one of them, all you need to do is move your eyeballs from icon to icon. When a particular icon gets selected, it pops out and then you select it. Now the question is, if there are no controllers, how do you select it? Here is where the finger tracking and the hand tracking technology actually comes in. To select an icon, all you have to do is release the pinch. And there are cameras on the side which actually detect your hand movements almost across the entire spectrum. Now that technology, my friends, is absolutely incredible and almost nothing like this exists in the market till now. Now the other question is, how do you deal with text boxes? you can always activate a magical keyboard on which you can type stuff. And well, we all forgot that there is Siri, which means you can directly speak to the Vision Pro and it'll automatically type whatever you're speaking to it. And now that we are done being impressed by this incredible eye tracking technology, let's take a look at what is it replacing. For me personally, it is replacing this, my iPad. And the way I used to interact with my content earlier is just to scroll, tap, and I was done. I didn't have any problems functioning normally and browsing and scrolling through content on my iPad. So the question is, do I really want to see my stuff on such a large screen? Especially if the cost of it is to wear such a heavy headset on my head, get my head all heated up, and especially when the battery life is just 2 hours. Well, my answer is no. Now the other feature is, with the Vision Pro, you can actually mirror the display of your Mac. Which means you wear your Vision Pro, you sit in front of your Mac, and it mirrors your display on a much larger screen. And then you use a virtual keyboard or a magic keyboard or a magic mouse to actually function. Now trust me, I have tried this stuff on the MetaQuest Pro and I honestly did not find the experience to be very productive. I'm perfectly okay working on my Mac or on my laptop. So in short, the inconvenience of working on the headset is much more than the so-called benefit of working on a much larger screen. So I'd rather not have it at all. So now let's talk about connectivity. So the Vision Pro has done a lot of investment to ensure that it solves all the conventional problems of a VR device. Now, what were the problems of a VR device if you ask? Well, a VR device typically cuts you off from the real world. In other words, it does not have a full pass-through. A pass-through is when the device allows you to see the real world. In the initial headsets, our pass-through was black and white. Then the MetaQuest Pro improved it and it gave us a full color pass-through. The Vision Pro has actually made the pass-through so good with its 4K micro OLED displays that it almost is equal to seeing it with your real eyes. But then there is still the problem of our friends sitting in the room who may still see us as someone wearing a weird headset because they can't really see our face. And that was a problem with VR devices. But not with the Vision Pro. With the Vision Pro, our friends can actually see us as if we are wearing very large goggles. They can actually see us is what I said. But wait, really? No, they actually don't see us, they see a simulated version of our eyes through the display. In other words, the Vision Pro has got a screen on the front side. Now this screen simulates the way our eyes would actually look as if they were looking at our eyes. Now, how is this done, you may ask? Well, here's where the cameras and the sensors on the inside of the device kick in. The cameras create a detailed mapping of our eyes and the sensors actually track our eye movements. So in the mode where our friends are actually seeing our eyes, they're not really seeing our eyes. They're looking at a 3D simulated version of our eyes as if they were mimicking a real eye movement. And that's what happens in a FaceTime call. In a traditional FaceTime call, you FaceTime with your friends and you're actually talking to them. We see videos of our friends talking to us and likewise. However, with the Vision Pro, we may be able to see a video feed of our friends, but our friends are actually seeing a simulated 3D feed of our entire conversation. Now in terms of pure tech, this is an incredible feat to pull off. Imagine pulling off a simulation of me talking in a 3D avatar of mine would require so much of technology. But the Apple Vision Pro manages to pull that off seamlessly. Incredible, isn't it? So let's take a step back and see again what is it replacing and what's the real benefit. Now in this case, it's actually replacing FaceTime. Now for me, isn't FaceTime so much more better? Because FaceTime is actually giving me a video feed of my conversations with my friends. And likewise, what my friends are seeing is the real me. Now if that is being replaced by a 3D avatar of mine, how is that better? And so for me, while it does solve the problem, it appears like a technology that was really not needed. But that's just me, and you guys will have to take your own call. So let's come to feature number 3, which is content. And here is where, trust me, I am most thoroughly impressed by the Vision Pro. Because here's where I can see my content on one huge giant screen in absolutely crystal clear 4K resolution. And here's where Apple with its entire ecosystem and its brand value will pack maximum value in this one particular offering. For example, Apple has already been able to convince content creators like Disney to create immersive content for the Vision Pro. Imagine seeing immersive movies in the future on your Vision Pro, and when you plug in your AirPods, you have a full 360 immersive experience complete with sound and vision. But in all this excitement, there is one tiny little problem. And what is that problem, you may ask? Well, the battery life. The battery life is just 2 hours. Most movies go beyond 2 hours. So we may not be able to complete our movies unless we sit close to a power connection and are constantly plugged into a power source till the movie ends. Now the other area where we're talking about immersive content is the world of gaming, which is Apple Arcade. Now Apple Arcade is not really about real gaming. Most of them are very simple indie games. Now if you talk of absolute hardcore gaming, then this device may not be the real device. For 2 reasons. One is again the battery life, and second is the amount of processing power that real hardcore games require would actually heat up the device and would reduce the battery time even further. And secondly, there are no controllers for the Vision Pro. You really can't play games by pinching and releasing your fingers. So you'll have to augment them with a non-Apple product as a controller. But despite all of this, I'm still pretty optimistic that a battery life problem would be solved. And if the battery life problem is solved by Apple, or if there are third-party batteries that give you a much higher battery life, I think it's a great device to just watch immersive content. Also, let's talk of that one other app that keeps getting featured on most of these devices, which is meditation. Now, I've tried Trip, which is the meditation app on the Meta Quest Pro, and I have the same view as a meditation app possibly on the Vision Pro as well. Meditation is not something that you do on devices. Meditation is an exercise where you are meant to enter into an immersive world powered by your mind. So the very thought of doing something like meditation and get a plastic immersive experience on a device which you wear on your head is itself a very repulsive thought to me. But all said and done, I think it's still a great device to view content if the battery life problem is solved. So again, the $1,000,000 question is, what is the big screen of Vision Pro actually replacing? It's actually replacing our big 85 or 65-inch televisions. But honestly, I feel that the 65-inch television will coexist along with headsets like this, because it's more about catering to our need for communal watching or social watching. And so it will coexist along with all these other devices. And now we come to the last feature which I am personally most excited about, which is augmentation. The ability to add augmentation in our real world, which means add objects in our real world, which will make our real world a lot more exciting. So for example, imagine walking on the roads where you are seeing a 3D version of the entire world around you, powered by something like Google Maps. And you're able to see directions, you're able to see translated versions of a hoarding in another language, in your language. You're able to see geo-triggered AR filters, which announce discounts at a particular store, and so many more examples like it. Now that is where the real world experience actually gets enhanced thanks to augmented reality. Or actually imagine this feature where the Vision Pro actually becomes your gym instructor. In other words, when you go to a gym, you actually get instructions from your personal trainer whether you're doing this exercise correctly or not. Now thanks to all the cameras which can do body tracking, now an app placed on the Vision Pro can actually give you real-time feedback whether you're doing your exercises correctly or not. Imagine the same thing happening in dance. Now, no one's really talking about some of these benefits, and my guess is that's the kind of development that will happen between now, which is the announcement at a WWDC, and the actual launch. The announcement at a WWDC was meant for the developer community. So let's hope that the developers are going to work on a series of apps which will sit on the Vision Pro OS and actually give us exciting stuff to look forward to. These are some of the exciting features that would make a device like this really worth the buck. And lastly, the very creepy feature of the 3D camera. I really can't imagine anyone, whether it's our friends or family members, wearing this device, moving around in the room, with others not knowing whether they are being clicked or not. I'm actually surprised that a company like Apple, which celebrates privacy so much, is actually advertising a feature like this. So all in all, what is the conclusion finally? I believe it's a fantastic device. And if you do end up spending $3,500 and do end up buying it, I think you'll be thoroughly impressed for it for 2 hours. But $1 million question is, will you use it as ubiquitously as you use the phone or your iPad or your laptop or even your TV? To that, my answer and my guess is that it's still a couple of iterations away. Meta came up with a great product and made a great start. Apple has taken the battle far ahead, but Meta will come with the second iteration. So will Apple. So will other companies like the Chinese companies like Pico and so many others. But there's still a couple of iterations away till a device like Vision Pro becomes an integral part of our life. Till then, I think we are at the beginning and on the cusp of a very, very important revolution happening in the world of wearables. I, for one, will try each and every one of them because I would love to be witness to this fantastic, exciting development in technology in our lives. Thank you and goodbye, and see you in the next episode.